Welcome to What's Going On, the weekly podcast and videocast of First United Methodist Church in Yankton, South Dakota. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of What's Going On. I'm Pastor Katie here at First United Methodist, and I'm glad you could join me for this episode. So often on this podcast, the things that I talk about are related to what's going on in my own mind and in my own life, and just as things that gives me occasion to bring up different topics. So part of what we do is talk about things going on in the life of the church, but then also things kind of going on in our lives in general. And so this past week, one of our two beloved cats passed away, Butters. Butters was 15 years old, had a wonderfully long life for a cat. I think it's the longest I've ever known a cat. But that passing has been really fascinating in the grief that it's been causing in our household that I was not expecting. So, as a pastor, I'm someone who deals with people going through grief, helping people walk through difficult times of losing loved ones. I've probably faced death more than the average human being due to the job that I have. And so I think I had within me this idea that I handled it better or that I would be able to process it more quickly. And by it, I mean my grief. But the reality was that this grief from this cat that's been in our house has hit me in a way that was very unexpected, and it's caused me to think a lot about grief and how we carry grief and deal with grief and walking through those conversations with my children, as this is the first loss that's been super immediate to them kind of in their lives. And so it's been an interesting week for me in that way, but it's caused me to think about two things in particular. One, grief, and the other one, our relationship to our pets, because it is a unique bond that we have, and I want to just sit with and think about for a little bit why that is and how that relates to our understanding of our faith and things that we can do about it. So first, let me talk just a little bit about grief, because it is a tricky and weird and beautiful thing, because at the end of the day, or at the beginning of the day, really, however you want to look at it, our capacity for grief is directly tied to our capacity for love. We don't grieve things that we do not love, that we are not connected to, that we are not bonded to in some way. And so I think in some ways, the grief that I've been experiencing and the surprise that I've had by it is I don't know that I realized how much that cat meant to me. This, like I said, is Jason's cat. He brought her into our relationship, into our marriage. They had been together long before Jason and I ever even met. And she did not like me right away. I really had to earn my stripes with her in a lot of ways. And she of our two cats is the less social, the less open, the less she likes to kind of keep her distance from things. She likes things the way they are. She was just very guarded in a lot of ways. But if she did decide to open up to you, she was the sweetest cat, and she very much was protective and would take care of you and um, be there. And so I think, again, it was an occasion for me to reflect on, like, why is this grief running as deep as it is for an animal, and not even my cat? Like, we kind of joke that there's Jason's cat and my cat, and we mostly joke like that when one of us when the cat would do something that one of us would have to clean up. Whose cat did that? That's not my cat. Oh, Butters needs, to take a pill. Oh, that's your cat. You better do that. Um, but recognizing kind of the relationship that grew there over time, and a relationship that supersedes the bounds of human versus animal. It's been interesting as well watching again in my family how grief presents itself, because we tend to think that grief, maybe you've heard of the 5 stages of grief, that there's anger, there's bargaining, there's um, acceptance. I forget what they all are. And we think that maybe grief needs to look a certain way or run a certain course. And the reality is that's when they made up those stages, like that was a helpful tool to kind of realize that maybe the way a person was behaving beyond crying um, was also a sign of grief. But it doesn't mean that every person exhibits all 5 stages of grief or works through all 5 of those stages. It doesn't mean that a person does them in a specific order, if in an order at all. It might be multiple layers of those stages happening at the same time. Um, and so creating space for people to process loss and death and grief differently while living in the same space. And um, that's been an interesting thing to see. It's been interesting walking with my young boys. Abigail's too young, 3-year old. I don't even know that she's really fully realized that we only have one cat anymore. But the boys, it's been very interesting to walk with them through it and to allow them to have questions and to process. We told them the day that it happened, and then the next morning, the first question out of both of their mouths at various points in the morning was, um, "Where's Butters?" And then I had to go back through, remember what we talked about yesterday, that she had passed away, and again, just that, like, letting that information settle into their spirit and being able be to process it and to understand what that means, and to let whatever emotions are there. So there was some emotion of grief, but there was also some, I think, emotion of regret. There was some emotion of fear. They've been very connected to the cat that we still have right now, because there's some fear of, when are we going to lose this one too? It's also, speaking of our other cat, it's been interesting watching him and trying to discern how much cats understand about this, and his behavior has been different. And those of you who've had pets your whole life, this is probably not news to you at all, but this is really the first time we're experiencing this in our household. And so it's just really fascinating, again, how different people and different animals process changes like this and process emotion around it. Um, because grief, if you've ever lost anything that you care about, um, again, that weighs on you to some extent, and that you carry that with you, and you never not carry it with you, but your life can grow around it. And so it's just been an interesting piece. But then I started thinking as well about our relationship to our pets, and the care and the love that we have for our animals, and how so many of you have been so gracious in reaching out when you found out, and recognizing the bond that is there. That there's times where you can feel kind of silly, like, why, it was just a cat. Like, why am I reacting in the way that I'm reacting? But so many of you point out of how, this is a life in your home, and this is part of the family, and that we often create bonds with our animals that are we find support in, and that we find love in, and that we care about. Some of you might be feeling, yeah, I feel that way with my dog, but I wouldn't ever feel that way with a cat. Well, or maybe a goldfish. I've lost goldfish before, and have not gone through the stages of grief, but goldfish don't typically, at least in my care, have not lasted that long. So I think that probably is part of it. But um, anyway, so it got me thinking as well about what is it about our pets that capture our hearts so much? And I think there is some level of the presence, that it's a constant presence, right? It's a constant um, life. I mean, when I got my cat, I was on my own, and it very much became another someone that something that I could care for, something that uh, I could relate to, I could talk to. Doesn't mean that he understood what I was talking about, but you still feel heard. Something that was excited when I came home, that was something to come home to, something that showed interest and uh, it gave you a purpose and it gave you um, meaning where for maybe many of us at different points in our lives have struggled with some of those things. And so our pets become surrogates for maybe a significant other or a child or a parent and they just become a source of life for us. There is a song that I had a pastor many, many years ago point out to me. And if I think about it, I'll put it in as I'll link it at the so that if you're watching this podcast or listening to it, there'll be a link where you can go listen to the song, and it's about God and dog. So it's specific to dogs, but I think I love dogs. I love cats as well, obviously. But this idea of that God created the dog as sort of a tangible way for us to understand love. Um, and that it just so happens that in English, dog and God are reverse the DOG, GOD, but that, when you come home to a pet, they don't care what you've been doing. They love you for you. They are excited to see you. They are glad that you're home. They've been waiting for you. And they don't care. It doesn't matter to them what you look like. It doesn't matter to them how you feel inside. They are ready and willing and waiting to show you affection and love and care. And that is a glimpse into the heart of God, that there's some level of dogs reflecting the heart of God in that way, in that, and it reminds me of the story of uh, the prodigal son coming home to the father, and the father, the moment that he sees the son, not having heard anything about where that son has been or what sort of uh, repentance that son might be willing to state, the father has already run to him, embraced him, and ready to throw him a party. And isn't it easy to see how a dog would do the same thing, right? Like that's such dog behavior, like in the best way of like, I'm so glad you're home. I'm so glad you're here. I've missed you. I waited for you. I love you. And people kind of joke that cats aren't like that at all, but cats can very much be like that and very much uh, I think, miss you. And I have found that our cats, they have to tell you first how upset they are, but then they're right there. Um, because they depend on you for that affection and that love, and but they're also so willing to give it. And so um I don't know, I think our tendency as humans to have pets, to want to care, to be able to provide, and then to have this sort of bond, this loving relationship, even that, when you cannot truly communicate with each other in language, but you can in many other ways. And um, that beautiful dependence, I just think is a great resource for us in trying to understand our dependence and our relationship with God who so often we don't have the ability to have right in front of us and be able to communicate directly, that the love that we experience from God transcends that, just as the love we give and experience with our pets transcends communication through language. So there's just so many ways in which there are parallels in our relationship with our pets versus our relationship with God. And I think maybe that's one of the ways or one of the reasons that we're so drawn to those kind of relationships, um, because it is speaking to something deep within us that's true beyond that relationship. So one, the song about dog and God. It's just a cute little song and very, I think, touching and heartwarming. And so that's one of the things I wanted to share with you today. The other is from this book. And if you've been with me for a while, you know how much I love this book, then you know how much I love John O'Donohue. Um, and he also does a blessing to learn from animal being. And again, I think it just goes back to there is something special and unique about the relationship between humans and animals and our and for us to kind of slow down and pay attention and to really dig into why is this so meaningful? Why is this so important to me? What am I getting out of this? What am I learning from this? And how can that reveal something greater? So I want to share this with you. Nearer to the earth's heart, deeper within its silence, animals know this world in a way we never will. We who are ever distanced and distracted by the parade of bright windows, thought opens. Their seamless presence is not fractured thus. Stranded between time gone and time emerging, we manage seldom to be where we are, whereas they are always looking out from the here and now. So may we learn to return and rest in the beauty of animal being. Learn to lean low, leave our locked minds, and with freed senses feel the earth breathing with us. I love how he draws our attention to so often, even if we are in a space, our brain is somewhere else. Our mind is thinking about things in the past or things yet to be done, or we become self-conscious, and so rarely do we find ourselves truly, fully in the moment, present with what is. And that's where most animals live all of the time. Their awareness is not what was or what will be, but very much what is right in front of me. What a beautiful lesson to learn from them about presence, to be truly present. And I would invite you this week, if you have pets at home, I would invite you to take some time and be truly present with them in the moment. If you have animals that like to play, that you take some time to just play, be in the moment, enjoy the rowdiness, enjoy the energy. If you have animals that like to cuddle, then for just a little bit, let that be your world. Feeling their soft fur, running your hand across their head, smelling that animal smell. Even if it's fish, which one of my biases is that you can't really pet fish and you can't cuddle with fish. And so that they get lower on the list of animals that I prefer because those are my two criteria of what I want in a pet is to be able to pet the pet and to cuddle the pet. But if fish are your thing, and there are times where I am caught at the clinic, there's a fish tank in the waiting room by the children's area, and my children are just drawn to it. And there's another fish tank at the library, and that's the first place they go. And they watch those fish and they look at the bright colors and the way that they move through the water and how they react to my children's presence outside of the tank. And they're just mesmerized. I had a dear friend who messaged me today that she got to check something off her lifelong bucket list, which was to swim with the manatees. And yesterday she had sent a video of getting to see manatees in a recovery place, and she said it's so peaceful to watch them. And then getting to swim with them today, how it made her heart leap with joy to be fully present in that moment, to get to experience an animal that she had longed to experience. I would invite you to take take a few moments, even if it's just for me, and really pay attention to whatever life you have around you. Maybe it is seeing a bird out your window, watching a squirrel scurry across the snow, looking for rabbit prints. Or maybe it's snuggling your favorite pet. Practice showing the love of God and love of neighbor with that life. Because I'll be honest, looking at a little puppy or kitty or bunny, it's easy to be filled with love. And if we can start there, then hopefully that'll allow us to grow in our capacity to show love to all life, human included. And remember that there is a cost to loving, and that cost is grief when we lose that object of our love. But grief is a kind of love that stays with you. It is a sign of love. And it is a cost that I hope you are willing to bear for the sake of truly loving. Because the more that we love, the more capacity we have to love. And we are called to that. The greatest commandments: love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself. And I would argue that that neighbor extends not just to the people around you, but to the life around you, and especially the life that you have committed to care for. Those are just some of the thoughts that I've had rumbling through my head this week with the unexpected loss of our cat. I'm doing okay, so please, no worries there. But give your animals a little extra squeeze for me, and take a few moments to be present with them, and let us learn that lesson from them this week. Looking ahead, I don't think we have many things that are new or different happening this coming week. We do have Women's Night Out at 6:30. That'll be on the 20th. We're going to go bowling, so you can meet us at 6:30 at Yankton Bowl. That'll be really fun. And then the 24th is our book club, Pastor Book Club. We're doing Amazing Grace, A Vocabulary of Faith by Kathleen Norris. If you have never read Kathleen Norris before, I highly recommend it. And if you are looking for one book to read of hers, actually my number one recommendation is her book Dakota, for anybody who lives in this area. It's just a fantastic book. This one is the one we're doing for Pastor Book Club is reflections on kind of words that we use in our faith, and sometimes they're scary, sometimes they feel overwhelming, sometimes they feel confusing, and she has a great way of telling stories and doing reflection, and she's a poet as well, to bring these words to life, but to also ground them in our lives, and so that's why I chose that one. I have made my decision for what we are doing next month for Pastor Book Club. We're going to be doing a book called The Liturgy of the Ordinary. This is a recommendation that a clergy colleague of mine has recently read it and felt that it was really wonderful and worth recommending. So I have not read it, but I have every confidence that it's going to be good, knowing who made the recommendation. So, and then also we have decided that for our Tuesday lunch study, we have 2 more weeks of Difficult Words of Jesus with Anne Lamott, or not Anne Lamott, Amy Jill Levine. Anne Lamott was our author for last month's book club, Amy Jill Levine. And then starting in March, we're going to start a new series called Reckless Love, which is based on the work of Tom Berlin. Tom Berlin is a bishop in the United Methodist Church in the Florida Conference. And it's all about loving our neighbors as ourselves. Again, things that I think are really important for us to keep in the forefront of our minds in the times that we are living in, and in all times. Again, I'm going to go back to It is one of the two greatest commandments that Jesus, if we do nothing else as followers of Jesus, we must follow those two commandments. And so that's what we're going to be doing on Tuesdays at noon, starting in March. If you want to jump in with us, that one is a total video series. You don't have to read anything. You just show up. We watch a video, we talk about it. Really low commitment. The Pastor Book Club, you buy the book. If you need help finding one, please let me know. I would be happy to help get that ordered for you. You read it and you come to that. So those are just a couple of the things we've got going on. Also, I know coming up in March, we will be doing camp promotions for summer church camp this summer. And so please, if you haven't already, start looking through that brochure, get some ideas of what you're interested in, and then we can help you get signed up for those things as well. And hopefully maybe coordinate and get some of the same kids going to the same camps, and so that they can all have fun together. So those are just a few of the things that are happening in the life of the church. So with that, I'm going to sign off. I hope that you have a wonderful week. Please try to stay warm. Winter has definitely reared its head this week. And so stay warm, stay safe. And until next time, God bless. Thank you for joining us for this episode of What's Going On, a video and audio podcast of First United Methodist Church in Yankton, South Dakota. We'd love to have you join us for worship on Sundays at 10 a.m., either in person or via our live stream, which can be found at our website, www.firstumcyankton.org, or by searching First UMC Yankton on YouTube.